Hello babies, it's Sophia. I hope you're all doing well. I'm sorry this room looks like a little bit of a mess right now, but it's kind of the only way I'm getting this very faint light right now. This is what procrastination looks like. I should have done this earlier, but here we are. So as you guys know, I posted a poll on my Instagram asking what kind of story time you guys wanted to see, and I posted multiple different stories, and it was a tight race between how I found out my ex cheated and how I got revenge on my ex-best friend and how it backfired on me. If you read the title, it's how I got revenge on my ex-best friend and how it backfired on me. If you saw my last video, you know that I kind of had a hard time in kind of transitioning into middle school and transitioning to high school due to another really close best friend that I had. I'm a very sensitive person, and when someone hurts me, it definitely takes me a while to get over. And the manifestation of that hurt that I dealt with that first friend led into more mistrust and bad choices as the years went on. I made it to high school, and then things started to change a little bit. I think I was tired of being over, and I was allowing myself to come out of my shell a little bit more freshman year. And then this friend it up for me. So let's get into the story. So like I said, I dealt with a lot of shit in middle school, and the distrust and kind of hurt that I was feeling from that first friend led into me making a lot of hasty decisions and bad choices. In middle school, I had met this girl towards the end. She was with me, was dealing with a lot of intense stuff at the end of middle school, so I considered her very close, and me being a super mushy gushy person, that's a gross way to say that, took it really deeply when she was like, "Oh, you're my best friend." And I was like, hold up a minute. I haven't had a best friend since the last one blamed me for arson. Are you legit? And she was like, "Yeah, no, I love you, I'm here for you forever." And I wanted to trust her so badly that I just let myself totally be enamored by the possibility of having a new best friend. Yeah, so we went into high school together. Freshman year, I got kind of sidetracked by this weird relationship I had with an upperclassman that I kind of didn't even really want. That's another story. And obviously that ended 2 months later. But then, because I was now single, I was really able to refocus my attention on her and give her all this time to talk to me about her life. And she was really lonely at the time. She was really lonely, and seeing her with my boyfriend made her really want one. And I was like, "Girl, go get it. I will help you. We're in this together. Let's find you a boyfriend. Let's do it." So she told me she'd been talking to this guy for a little bit, and I knew him from just seeing him because this boy was always in flannels, was really beefy, and I don't know if that's an insult, but he was thick. He was a thick boy, and I was like, "Oh my god, he looks like a lumberjack. He's so cute. You should go for it." You know, trying to help this boy out and help her at the same time, because he seemed like a nice kid at the time, and I asked around about him and people only had good things to say, that he was super sweet, blah blah blah. And I was like, "Oh, my friend so needs this. Let's I'm gonna try and egg her on as much as I can so she will start to like him." Even though they were talking, my friend was like, "I don't know, he's kind of ugly. Oh my god, he's so fat. Oh my god, he's just not for me. I don't want to be with him." I'm like, "You're getting a green light from this kid that is being very sweet to you, very nice, and clearly wants to be something more than friends with you, but you're I guess be picky, whatever." Her personal decision, but from talking to her over and over and being like, "He's so sweet," and her being like, "No, he's ugly, he's fat, blah blah blah," I was like, "Okay, fine, whatever. Let me try and find someone else." While I was hyping this boy up and being like, "Oh, he's so cute, you should be with him, da da da, he's so cute, I've heard all these nice things about him," that other people were starting to ask me if I liked him. And I was like, "No, I don't like him. Why would you ask me that?" And they're like, "Oh, just wondering." And I was like, "Okay, weird." And just kind of went about my life for a little bit. And then one day I was walking just after school. I had to see a teacher, and I hear someone yell, "Lumberjack!" I turn around and it's the boy that I was talking about and his friend, and I was like, why would they know what I was calling him? That's really odd, because that was just supposed to be between me and my best friend. So I went up to her and I was like, hey, I just saw blank and blank, and they said lumberjack, which is something that I've used to describe him. Have you said anything? Have like what's going on? And she was like, no, I would never. Like, that's just between you and I, like besties, da da da. And I was like, okay, that's fine. And later that night, I got a text from this boy. And he was like, hey, I hope you don't mind. So-and-so gave me your number. I just want to talk to you a little bit. And I was like, okay. So we start texting, and I thought this was about my friend and that he was finally like making a step to try and get with her. So I FaceTimed him and we're talking just about school, like what he's into, da 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 da. And then he stops talking and his eyes get really wide, and I said, what's wrong? And he said, this is really awkward, but I feel like you should know that blank, my best friend, is texting me that you're a slut, that you're a sex maniac, and that you're trash and you're this and you're that. And I was flabbergasted. I was just on screen so embarrassed on this FaceTime with this literally random ass kid. And are you what in the world? Like, what in the world was this girl thinking? And I said, why is she saying all of that? He said, oh, well, she was texting me and then I mentioned to her that I was on a FaceTime with you. And we're still on the call and I'm just still kind of processing what information was just given to me. I just felt, I wasn't upset. I just felt this like really intense anger from betrayal, from being lied to. And he was like, are you gonna tell her anything? And I said, you know what, no. I'm gonna pretend none of this happened. Like, don't tell her that you told me. Just keep it quiet. Like, I'm just gonna see if she has the balls to tell me at some point. And he was like, okay, that's fine. We hung up and she texted me later that night. She was like, hey, what are you doing? I said, oh, nothing, just like hanging out. Oh, well, were you on a FaceTime with blank, the boy? And I said, yeah, I was. And she said, why? Why are you on a FaceTime with him? And I said, oh, I don't know, he got my number from somebody and he just wanted to talk. And she was like, okay, did you like do anything else? And I was like, no, I'm not interested in him, he's boring, whatever. And she's like, well, yeah, he's like super boring and he like sucks and I hate him and he's the worst. And I was like, okay, well, glad we're on the same page. And she was like, yeah, so you should like stop talking to him because he's like super lame. So that happens, nothing else is really said, but I continued talking to this boy and I said, what else has she told you about me? And he said, well, for a couple weeks now, she's been showing me and my friend group all the texts you've been sending about me. I was like, what texts? And she's like, oh, just, and he said, oh, just, you know, the ones about like you thinking I'm super hot and blah, 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 blah. I said, oh, that's so interesting because I had asked her if she did that and she said no. And he said, no, yeah, she's been like screenshotting them and sending them to me and then showing them to my friends at school. Oh, it was like that. It was like that. Enraged, like I could not use enough adjectives to describe the absolute amount of betrayal that I was feeling in that moment. But again, I told her, don't tell her anything, pretend that I don't know, just keep this hush hush. I'll figure out what to do with it later. one day I was walking in the hallways just talking, and I wasn't really thinking of doing anything at the time, but then my friend ran up to us and she was like, hey, what are you guys doing? What are you guys talking about? Like, oh my god, what's going on? I said, oh, nothing. He's just going to class and I have a free period. I'm gonna chill. And she was like, okay. Well, he leaves for class and she's like, so I like him. And I said, what? She's like, yeah, I like him. You, like, don't talk to him. And I said, but you've been saying for the longest time that you're not interested in him. Like, I'm just curious about how that turned around. She's like, well, like I do. And that's just like how I feel right now. I said, okay. Well, I have to study for a test, so I'll see you later. Like, target identified. Like, it just clicked in my mind that I was going to make this girl suffer. And decided to like full steam ahead and make this boy mine. So I amp up the flirting, amp up the daily talking, and what can I say? I got him like that. And we started dating. And I didn't say anything. Again, didn't really let anyone know. We're just kind of keeping it quiet for a couple of weeks. And then we were gonna hang out after school, so we were like getting into the car together to go to my house. And who sees us but my friend? And I don't say a word to her, I pretend I don't see her, and I get into the car. And she immediately texts me and she says, what are you doing? I said, nothing. She's like, no, I saw you get into the car with him. What are you doing? Where are you going? I said, oh, we're just hanging out. And she's like, well, you know that I like him. Like, why are you doing that? And I was like, oh, I forgot that you told me that. I thought that you still didn't like him. And she was like, no, I was only saying that so you could get away from him. And I was like, what? You were only telling me that because you wanted me to not talk to him. And she was like, yeah, I did. And I was like, well, that's confusing. And she said, yeah, well, just don't do anything with him, okay? And I said, okay. I won't do anything. And then later, she texts me, by the way, I'm gonna ask him out tonight. I said, oh, you are? She was like, yeah, do you have a problem with that? And I said, yeah, I kind of do because I'm his girlfriend. Checkmate. And she just lost it. She's like, how the fuck could you do that? Da, da, da. And I was like, listen, I've known for months that you have been telling him all my personal shit, been telling him and all his friends that I think he's attractive and showing them my texts and calling me a slut to him while I was on a FaceTime with him. Why would you think I owed you any type of loyalty? And she was like, I was just doing that because you're so pretty. I have the text messages still. This is how petty I am. I don't forget. I just wanted you to like stay away from him, and I wanted him to like, cause you get any guy you want, and like, and I just feel just no empathy whatsoever for me. You're not getting a tear out of me. I just like, you got what you deserved. You got what you deserved. I had no remorse for it at the time. She's like, I'm never gonna talk to you again. Like, I hate you. And I was like, I don't need you to talk to me again. I don't need a person like you in my life. You scoot on out, hun. Like, get the out of my face. And I didn't speak to her for a while, and I get into a relationship with this boy. And I think I've won. I think got her. So worth it. But then life decided to teach me the lesson that you should just let shit go instead of getting revenge, and he was crazy. I've never broken up with someone and then had them text my mom that I needed to go to therapy. This is a whole other story time, by the way, but mess of a relationship. It was a mess, and so much of this have happened. I tried to move on. He pretended that we were still together. It was crazy. He wrote letters to like other boyfriends I had telling them what a skank I was. I was like, you know what? I really should have just let it go. I don't really know what kind of lesson there is here, because I think that you should stand up to people who are doing you wrong. But I don't know, seeking revenge is a tricky thing. And I think it should have been better for me to be the bigger person and be like, you're a horrible friend. I'm leaving all of this behind. But yeah, I think I'm gonna save that relationship for another story time if you guys want to hear it. Because that in itself is just such a long story. So I think I am gonna save that for another time. Don't be mad. That was the story on how I got revenge on my friend. And I've said this before, I'll say it again, be careful with who your friends are because you never know. And I think one of the biggest telltales with this girl should have been that she was just so insecure. She was so insecure. And which is hysterical given the fact that she was literally calling this boy like fat and ugly and stupid. But insecure people are a loose cannon. They are just so unstable. And when they turn that insecurity at you and start like blaming you for the cause of their insecurity, red flag. And if you're someone that is dealing with a friend like this, girl, bye-bye. Not even just a girl, anyone that is dealing with a backstabbing friend, you don't need them. I got you. Come, hold my hand, I will baby you. You do not deserve that. You are better than that. You deserve people that love you and that will stand by you. Okay? Okay. So I'm gonna say goodbye. I hope you enjoyed the story time. Sending you all muchos besos and be a good person.